You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a wash machine.
Monte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Blue mouse shot. Oh my word.
Unbelievable. He ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans. My name is Matt Markstone. I'm the host of the show. No matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thank you for making the show a part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. And one way you can enjoy the show now is directly on the show's website at southamptondelivery.com. There are links there to subscribe to whatever podcast app you use. And if you have any feedback on it, I'd be very, very grateful. And that is just one of the new things that we are offering here. So in addition to the podcast and the new website, there's also a new newsletter that goes out each Friday that will kind of wrap up the week in news. And each newsletter will also have an article that I hope that you will enjoy, written by usually someone other than me, that gives them a chance to just write something related to the team. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to an upcoming match or something, but some sort of longer piece that you may not read anywhere else. So hopefully that you find that enjoyable. You can subscribe to that. There are links on the website and in the show notes and everything else. So obviously, Saints were not in action this week. It was the FA Cup 5th round fixtures, but I got a chance to catch up with Tom Murray, and Tom is on Twitter at T214Murray, and he is part of the volunteer team of commentators that commentates for the blind and partially sighted fans at Southampton home games. So anytime you're at St. Mary's for a home match, Tom and the team will be there doing providing commentary. And they do that under the direction and guidance of Alan March Sport. And it was really nice to be able to talk to Tom about everything from how he prepares for games to how he got into commentary and football in the first place, as well as just what it's like to be up there and the job they try and do for the fans who are unable to see the action that's going on the field. So it was really nice to talk to Tom about that. We do talk a little bit about the team as well towards the end of the show, but this was mostly focused on the service they provide and what that's like from Tom's perspective. And I think it's a fantastic service that Alan March Sport is providing, and I was thrilled to be able to talk to Tom about it. So I hope that you enjoy it. And maybe part of the reason that it was so enjoyable for me is because we've had Steve and Dan Jarvis, who the club did a little thing on not too long ago. We've had them on the show to be able to talk to them about the bond they share through football. And of course, Steve has lost his sight as a result of an accident, and Dan and him have a very special bond that football over football and a number of other things. So anyway, I hope that you enjoy this with Tom. If you want to get in touch with Tom, you can do so, like I said, on Twitter at T214Murray. Also, if you or someone you know would like to use the audio description service, there's a link in the show notes to the Southampton website, or the page on the Southampton website that has all the links for that. So with that said, let's get into the interview with Tom. Thanks for joining us as always, and I hope that you enjoy it. We'd like to welcome to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Tom Murray. You can find him on Twitter at T14Murray. He's a commentator for Alan March Sport, does all the Saints home games. Tom, the Saints are off this weekend, FA Cup and all that. They've been in Tenerife. Lots to talk about, but thanks for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, man. I don't know if you do this. I feel like we were just talking, 10 seconds ago, and I feel like I've flipped a switch into podcast voice. I don't know if you do that when you're in the booth or not.
Yeah, when we're doing the commentary, we're having a bit of banter between each other, and then as soon as we go live, it's straight into the game.
Yeah, it's the way it goes. So, I mean, I have a lot of questions, and we'll talk about the kind of the service that Alan March Sport provides and your role in that. But before we do any of that, and of course we'll talk about the team too, but before we do any of that, let's It's good to know you just a little bit. I often have the assumption that anybody who grew up in the UK played football from, they were basically born and handed one. And so for you, is that the case? Did football kind of play a big role in your household growing up?
It's actually quite different. None of my family members were much into football. My dad has always been more of a rugby fan. And I, until the age of 10, was completely immune to football. I only saw people at school play it. And to be fair, it never really interested me. And then it's a strange story, but one day I finally managed to get my parents to get me a PlayStation 2. And after playing lots of racing games, adventure games, I thought, well, people are playing football games, so why not I get one myself, see what all the fuss is about. And I got Pro Evolution Soccer 2, and that got me into football. I was hooked, and I'd never really played it before, played in real life, but I just thought, I want to get out there. I want to join in.
See, I mean, I'm a little bit older than a lot of the kids that are playing FIFA, and my high school students are always like, do you play FIFA? And I'm like, yeah, like if, last day of school, whatever, like the kids will bring it in, we'll play on the projector and stuff like that. And they're always a little bit surprised because they want to take it easy on me a little bit. And then they're a little bit surprised. They're like, hey, I'm actually not terrible. But I can say that as I was playing FIFA and I had my created player or whatever, because I didn't know, I somehow wound up in that game mode, didn't know how to get out of it. So I just went on with this career. I wound up playing for Sunderland, and I'm so glad that I didn't make the mistake of joining that red and white striped team with my allegiance. So things would have been much, much different.
Yeah, no, especially with the predicament that Sunderland find themselves in at the moment. I don't know how I actually got into Southampton. I don't think the team I used to play with, because obviously the early Pro Evo games didn't have the licenses for the actual Premier League teams. I think it was London Blue for Chelsea. So I just stuck with the international teams and just played as England constantly.
Okay. All right. See, playing with the US wasn't always that fun. So we had to mix it up a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, that's an interesting story. So is your dad, now that you are doing the work that you're doing, you're commentating and stuff, is he a bit more into it, or he's still a rugby fan and that's kind of the way it goes?
No, he's very much into football now, because when we started going to games, obviously I was quite young at the time, so he would take me, and he's very much a Southampton fan now. If I go as a fan to the games, I'll go with some of my friends, but if they're not available, then my dad will happily come along and cheer on the Saints. He's very much a Southampton fan. He wouldn't dare support anyone else.
All right. And I guess, where did you grow up in England, or did you grow up outside of England, or was it always around the Southampton area?
I was actually born in Belgium, but moved into the UK when I was about 2. But since then, we've always lived in the south of England in a place called the New Forest. It's a national park in the UK, very south centrally. And it's about where I live is actually halfway in between Bournemouth and Southampton. So my friends, when I went to school in Bournemouth, were saying, well, I think Bournemouth might be a little bit closer, so Southampton aren't your local team.
See, now when I was going down on the train from London to Southampton for the day when we were there, when we saw the England women's national team play and all that stuff, last spring, so almost a year ago, the older couple that was riding down on the train, sitting across from my kids, they were from Bournemouth, and they were the nicest people. Once the guy kind of saw my jersey that I was wearing, and he goes, "Hey, are you a football fan?" And so we got to talking, and so that's my one interaction with anybody from Bournemouth, and they were great. So I have I just ignore some of the people online, and then I think the town sounds nice. So whatever. Yeah, no, the fans from Bournemouth, I've always liked Bournemouth as a club, and going to school in Bournemouth, especially a lot of the time Bournemouth were below Southampton, so I would always look out for their results and hope they did well. And a lot of my friends would support Bournemouth. And now it's more of a rivalry between my friends who I still keep in touch with, because obviously Bournemouth have overtaken us somewhat in the last couple of years. So there's a bit of banter going on there, but I've always had a soft spot for them. I wouldn't actively want them relegated unless, of course, it was either us or them. Right. And it seems like a lot of Saints fans feel that way. It's the other team that we won't talk about that nobody likes, and I think it should stay that way. I did enjoy, I think they've had a couple of results. They've just been kind of falling apart. So it's been fun. And we actually get that channel here. So if it looks like they'll lose, I'll tune in just for the end of the game so I can see disappointment. And that's probably not the nicest thing for me to say, but that's how I feel.
Well, there wasn't any football for Saints fans to follow, but it was quite pleasing to see that they threw away a 3-0 lead against Southampton today.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed that probably too much, but I mean, so when did you start to become a Saints fan, or when would you? I mean, going to matches and things like that. When you finally convinced your dad to do it, when would you finally say you kind of became a fan and that this was your team?
It was, unfortunately, it was in the 2004-2005 season that I started supporting them, and obviously they got relegated. It was a case of I wanted to support the local team. Southampton was the closest team to me, and I had quite a few friends at school who'd support them, and we had some family friends who would actually go to the game, and they took me and my dad to my first game, which was at home to Aston Villa. Unfortunately, we went 2-0 up and lost 3-2. The winner scored by Aston Villa was actually by Stephen Davis, would you believe? And how that he would come back to be, in my view, a bit of a Southampton legend, a really, really nice guy. 2005, that's when I started. I wasn't the biggest fan, but as the years went on, the next season in the Championship, and then the following season with Theo Walcott, Gareth Bale, I became much more of a fan. And I'd say every year since then, my love for them has grown to, it's now, I'd say, an unhealthy obsession.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I know you've been to the Southampton Stadium, obviously, and you've been there both as a fan and as commentator through your work with Alan March Sport. But have you been to any kind of away grounds as a fan that kind of stand out in your mind?
Absolutely. I didn't go to an away game until I was about 16. It was when we were in the promotion season from League One. My first away game was technically my first away game was the game against Bournemouth, where we won 3-1, and I had to sit in the Bournemouth end because one of my teachers at school had a spare ticket, and I thought, I've got to go to this game. It's the game that everyone's talking about. I can't miss it. I can't just listen to the radio about it. I've got to be there. So that was fun, sitting on my hands in the home end around some very disgruntled fans who were not pleased when Ricky Lambert smashed one into the top corner. But for me, my favourite away day has got to be same season. I went with my friend Laurie. We went to Leyton Orient away, and we won 2-0. And it was such a beautiful late spring day. It was really nice and warm, and I think as Southampton fans, we almost outnumbered the home fans. We took up one side of the stadium, and it was just carnage all day. It was a fantastic away day. I think we won 2-0 in the end, and that was just one of the many wins on the way to promotion.
Absolutely. And it's always nice to hear especially right now. Sometimes things don't seem like they're going as well. Even we've had a bit of a resurgence under Ralph Hasenhüttl. We played much better, but the signs of Saints of the past couple of years have still been there. And so it's nice when you have somebody with some clear memories of some days that really, were, I guess, I don't want to say were fun to go to, because I still think the games are fun no matter what. But that's from somebody who only gets to go to one every once in a while. So it's an experience. But for somebody who's for season ticket holders or whatever, who are going and seeing the drudgery every week, it's I'm sure it wears on them. So to harken back to maybe brighter times is always nice. Growing up, did you have a player that stood out to you? Was it Ricky Lambert? Obviously, we're talking on his birthday. So happy birthday to Ricky Lambert. It will be 3 days removed by the time it's here, but by the time it airs. But anybody stand out? If it wasn't Ricky, maybe who else?
It was definitely. If it wasn't Ricky, and I'd have to say it would definitely be members of that team, the likes of Morgan Schneidlin, Kelvin Davis, Jose Font, Adam Lallana, yes, maybe to a lesser extent now due to the way he left. But if I was to look back on those times, I wouldn't think badly on Adam. I'd always think of how he was such a wonderfully talented player. And basically, if it wasn't for him, we most likely wouldn't be where we are now, purely because in League One, and to some extent the Championship, when Lallana didn't play, Southampton didn't play. Even with Lambert on the pitch, we just struggled to break down teams, and he had that bit of creative skill, bit of flair that could just open up a side, as I think he still does. And probably, obviously, Liverpool have such a good team now, it's hard to see where Lallana's going to fit in. Would I have him back at Southampton? I don't know, but he's certainly a player that I look back on fondly. I'd say it would probably be between Ricky Lambert and Adam Lallana. Those two were the dream partnership, really, especially in our promotion years.
Yeah, and I think if you could just isolate the years that Lallana played for the team and you took away kind of all the extracurricular stuff, I think everybody would love him, because he was one of those players that everybody talks about how well he played. It's just everything that's happened since. And it's really a shame to see him he just hasn't been the same in the past couple of seasons. And there's been a couple injuries in there, and then he struggled to get in the team, and then, the manager changes and everything else. So who knows if he's going to ever get back to that level. But it's he's not well liked by a lot of people now. And it's just the way it goes. I guess you gotta do what's right for your career if you feel that's right. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And I think Van Dijk will wind up the same way, and all that other stuff. But I guess another kind of question about just growing up and watching the team is there a goal maybe or a moment that stands out to you that you remember kind of more than the others?
If I was going to pick a goal, it would be more recent than those times in League One and the Championship. But my favourite goal was Cuco Martina against Arsenal, where from just out of the blue, he bent it with the outside of his foot from about 30 yards out. No one expected it, and when everyone saw him lining up to take the shot, you thought, oh God, this is going to go out of the stadium. And to see it just slam into the bottom corner, my friend and I just looked at each other as like, what has actually happened? That game was so strange because before the game, I think during the time, Southampton were really, really struggling. And we were like, Arsenal at home, we're going to get battered. They're in good form. And I just said to him on the way to the ground, Cuco Martinez just going to score from 40 yards out, and we're going to win. And he was like, yeah, of course. And that happened, and he was like, okay, that was a good prediction. He said, what's the next goal going to be? And I said, well, Shane Long's going to score from 5 yards out. We both laughed at each other because, of course, we both laughed at each other thinking, Shane Long, 5 yards? No. And then 2-0, it was Shane Long from 5 yards. And then we got a corner. I said, Fonte's going to score this. And Fonte did score it, and we looked at each other, and it was almost as if like the X-Files music was going on. I thought, I want to go home. I'm calling too much. Why did I not put money on this?
Right. Yeah, your accumulator could have been just out of this world with those three guys all scoring,
Exactly. But if I was going to pick not a goal but a moment, it would probably be the comeback against MK Dons in League One, where Jonathan Fort came on and we were 2-0 down, and he scored 2 goals with 2 touches in 1 minute. And he was, in my opinion, not the best of players, but who knows? Would we be where we are now if he hadn't have scored those 2 goals? You never know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have, even though you maybe didn't grow up a fan of the game. It seems like in the time that you've been around through kind of I don't want to say the worst of it, but when the team was really kind of going through some leaner times, I guess, in terms of dropping down to League One and coming back through. So, and it sounds like you and a lot of the people who were the fans during that time, even though it wasn't necessarily what they wanted or would have wanted to see happen to the team, those years were kind of a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, they were huge amounts of fun. I look back on them with great fondness, and certainly through the Pellegrino season and to an extent Claude Puel, you sort of look back and think, wow, those were really good times. It was a really good time to be a fan. Although we were down in League One, it was a case of every weekend the chances of us winning the match were incredibly high. We had a fantastic team. You felt that you could connect to the players more so than I think now, and I think that's why, especially the summer where we sold Lambert, Lallana, I think that's what a lot of fans, it hit hard because those were legends that were suddenly just being the team that they grow. You felt as a fan, you grew with the team. You didn't want Lambert to score in the Premier League just because it'd be a goal for Southampton. You wanted him to score in the Premier League because he had earned it. He had taken the club by the scruff of the neck and pulled it on his own almost up back through the leagues. And for him to score in the Premier League, you're like, get in Southampton, get in Ricky.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have some questions about you in terms of working for Alan March Sport and kind of the role that plays. And in doing the show, I want to say last season, I talked with Dan and Steve Jarvis, and Steve is the father of Dan, and they are Dan goes to a ton of away games and home and away, and he's he's been around a while, and Steve is also a really big fan of the team. But Steve lost his sight, is legally blind as a result of an accident, kind of when Dan was a young child, and so he uses the service that Alan March Sport and prior to that, I think other services provided. So when I kind of heard that you were one of the commentators for this and provided this service, that they were, I think, two of the people that popped into my mind right away. And I know that having talked to Dan and Steve, that they are very thankful for the services that you guys provide. And so I didn't know if you know that or if you know any of the people personally who use the service. So that I just wanted to pass that on to you. And can you just tell me, I guess, a little bit about Alan March Sport and what they do in terms of audio production for the Southampton and some of the other Premier League teams in terms of what they provide for fans, I guess?
Yeah, first of all, it's wonderful to hear such positive feedback. Obviously, what we want to do is bring the game to life for those who are blind and visually impaired, because they still love the game. They love their team and they want to follow it just as any other fan would. So it's wonderful to hear such positive feedback. I actually did message Dan a couple of months back actually, because the Southampton media team did a piece on both he and Steve, right. And I got in contact. And they said that Dan would commentate to Steve and say joke about how some of the other teams' services were a bit biased towards their own team. But I got into, I chatted with Dan and I sent him a message saying, do you know, just making you aware, I don't want to take the bond you have with your father about you commentating to him away or anything, but just so you know, we do have the service there available. Should you want? He said his dad was using it and he really liked it. So that is great to hear. In terms of how we operate, so yeah, it's just providing the audio descriptive commentary for those fans, just trying to bring the game to life. Whilst Alan March Sport have other services, they do other stuff like announcements and commentary. The entirety of the commentary team at Southampton is voluntary. This is we don't get paid to do this. We do it for the love of the game and to provide this service for the fans. And as I said, it's great that those who are using the service are really enjoying it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess for you guys doing the commentary and stuff and doing all that, I know it's one of the things that Dan mentioned before with when you go away, sometimes it's not as clear as to how to get a hold of the services and all that stuff. So he would be kind of telling me stories of him running around away grounds trying to find the stuff. And sometimes the way that away grounds are situated, I think even Southampton have it where away fans, you're kind of restricted in terms of where you can go. So sometimes it's got outside the ground all the way around and all this other stuff. So hopefully now that I bet at home, the home fans at least have a pretty easy time doing it. But in terms of presenting or commentating, I mean, was that always something you wanted to do? And then how did you wind up becoming involved with Alan March Sport when it all started? Because I think you guys took over St. Mary's or Southampton in terms of providing that in 2018, I think, in September. Yeah,
it's a completely new service for this season. It actually missed the first game of the season against Burnley just purely to find these commentators and to get the service up and running. Yeah, new this season. I've always wanted to work in football. That's been my dream, but I've also known that that's quite an ambitious dream. So whilst I haven't focused on it, I went to university, I got my degree. I've also just been working in other jobs, and this opportunity came up over the summer. Southampton had this advertisement on their website from Alan March Sports saying, looking for commentators for this new commentary service. Just send in a couple of hundred words on why you think you'd suit the role, and about 45 seconds to 90 seconds of your commentary. It can be real, it can be made up. And I thought, I might as well put my hat into the ring. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They say no, and I think, well, this wasn't for me, or I can always try again another time. But they said yeah, and invited me to the training day, and thankfully I got through the training day. Everyone there was really good. So it was a lot of a lot of competition for the 4 spots that were available. So I went in thinking, again, if I don't get it, then this is a really interesting day on how I can improve as a commentator. I mean, when I was younger, the only commentary experience I actually have was maybe I had a PSP and I'd play FIFA on it on the school bus, and maybe under my breath I'd just commentate to myself on the game that I was playing, and certainly got a few weird looks from other people thinking, why on earth are you commentating on a video game? But I thought it paid off in a way.
I mean, that's a really interesting kind of story that in terms of how you got into it. And I can say that we have a school YouTube channel, and we tried to broadcast some sports last year, and trying to find, we had kids who could do American football. They did great. We had kids who could do basketball. Okay. Volleyball, my wife did, and she did great. We tried to do some soccer, some football games, and it was just not, it was bad. And, even to the point where I tried to do one, and I was just like, I can't keep up with we have rolling substitutions, so the players are constantly changing. We're too far away, just trying to run everything, and it was just a disaster. So a lot of kudos to you guys for being able to put it all together.
Thank you. It is, when we were doing the training, it is tough to keep up with play. The most difficult game I'd say I've done this season would be the Manchester City game, and especially the first half, because I've never had to keep up with play as much as I had to do for that game. Manchester City were phenomenal. The ball would be on one side of the pitch, and within a couple of seconds they'd flicked it about 3 passes onto the other side. And you've got to keep up with where the ball is every second, where every movement. So to keep up with Manchester City was definitely a test. I really enjoyed doing it, because once you have got your pace, the pace of way of speaking, it rolls off the tongue. But at the first 5 minutes of just getting up to speed with how they were playing was tough. It was very tough.
I guess if everybody could just line up and play 4-4-2 and just stay pretty rigid, it'd be a lot easier, right?
Absolutely. When Manchester United came to town, they played a really weird formation with, I think, only one centre back, and they were one recognised defender. My co-commentator Nick and I just looked at each other and were thinking, how on earth have they lined up? And thankfully, for that game, through some family and friend connections, I was able to chat a bit with Arlo White, the commentator for NBC.
Yeah.
And he was at the game, and I'd had a conversation with him before the game, and he'd give me a few tips. He was there. We had a good chat about furthering myself in the field, that kind of thing. But we went over to him with the team sheets, and he was as perplexed as we were. He's thinking, I have no idea how they've lined up. We can't make heads or tails of it either.
Now I'm gonna strafe here from the written notes here, but did Arlo White? Did you get a look at his notes, at his board, at the colorful kind of thing? Did you get a glimpse of that? Because sometimes he shows it off on Instagram on a story. He'll kind of just say, look, this is some of the preparation. This is how I do it, and that's always super fascinating to me. The kind of amount of work, I guess, that people don't realize what goes into behind the scenes. He doesn't just get up there. You don't just get up there and magically know everything. This takes preparation, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, he actually brought over his notes to us, because our commentary position was just to the right of his. So before the game, during halftime, he'd come over and just show us what he was doing, like his match notes. And yeah, absolutely, the colourful board is definitely a real thing. He actually has one team on one side and one on the other. And he told me that during the match he would flip them over depending on which team has possession of the ball. And yeah, that's his style of doing the preparation. My own style, which is still being honed. You never have a wrong or right style. My one is, I have separate few pages of notes just about the game, whilst I will have over a 2-page spread each team, the likely lineup they're going to play with a few of a few facts and figures about the players. For example, for the Cardiff match, I'd have Nathan Redmond, and in big bold writing, say 6 goals in 10 appearances under Hasenhüttl, like key player, that kind of thing.
I don't know. It's just crazy the amount of stuff that goes into it that people don't realize. But for those people who haven't ever used the service, maybe who because it's, I mean, I'm sure there's a limited number of the devices and stuff that you guys are able to provide, but like, yeah, how different is it from what you're doing to what maybe the TV commentators are doing, or is it similar, or are you trying to do something different because the people that are using the service, obviously they can't I guess see the pitch, and so you have to do a little bit more, or how does that work?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head, as it were. For TV, people watching the TV, they can see the play in front of them. So if the commentator was to start just saying every player that has the ball, exactly what direction the ball was going in, you'd think the viewer might think, well, hang on, I don't actually need to know this. I can see it for myself. For audio description, what we're told when we were doing the training with Alan March Sport, the key thing was, where is the ball? It doesn't matter who has it, and if you don't get the name out, not a problem. As long as the person listening knows where the ball is all the time, then you're fine, and you can build that is the framework that you can build from. So with audio description, it's very much every passage of play, where the ball is, what direction it's gone in, maybe the pace of the ball, what players have made certain runs, and that's really helpful for having two people commentating. So what we'll do is we'll do 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off of taking the lead. So the other person can be, if you're keeping up with the ball, they can say when the ball's got out of play. What was really interesting about that attack was the run by Shane Long. He tried to get to the front post. The ball just missed him, but it was really good attacking play from Shane Long. On audio description, it's not just about the play. We want to bring to life everything about the game. So during the match, it could be not that Yannick Vestergaard has got the ball, but as he's bringing it forward, you say he's got his long blonde hair in a bun today instead of down by his shoulders, or maybe he's got blue boots today, whereas last weekend he had red. So we're trying to describe everything about it, and when in the build-up for when the teams come out, when the referee when the teams come out, we want to. Recently, Southampton, I think, for quite a lot of their home games, have had the pyrotechnics, the flames, and the fireworks before the match on either side of the tunnel. So we'll explain and describe that to them, different colours that are coming out, even to how many groundsmen are on each half, dealing with the little divots caused by the training before the match. So yeah, it's very much keeping up. When the ball is in play, you can't focus on anything around that. You can't talk about any interesting stats. I mean, if maybe there's a stoppage, say a player's down injured, you can't go to a break or anything. You've got to keep on talking about different points of the match. And if it's an exciting match, that's quite easy to do. But when the ball is moving, you just concentrate on where the ball is all the time, and you keep the listener up to date with the score, and even like, is the ball on the near side, far side, that kind of thing.
And is there like a section of the ground that is able to get this device that you guys provide, or are these things spread all around to home fans, away fans, Kingsland Stand, everywhere else?
Yeah, it's actually, so that for other clubs that they provide the service, that's Nottingham Forest, it's a case of you ask a steward for a receiver, they'll bring it to you. Whereas at Southampton, we have it that you would book. Normally, you can book before the game. You call the line. I don't actually have that on me at the moment, unfortunately. But you would call them up, and
it's okay. We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, you'd call them up, and it would actually be at your seat. They take it to your seat. That's with your ticket. So when you get there, either before the game, definitely before kickoff, you'd have the receiver brought to you, and you just plug in either the headphones provided or your headphones that you brought with you, and it's for both home and away fans. And you just plug in, and it's a very simple device to use. It's just got the volume button is the on and off button, so you just turn the little screw round, and hey presto, it's on, and you're listening to the service when it's on. Yeah, we're trying to make it. It's all about giving these fans access to the game that they love, and we're trying to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's awesome. I guess just a couple more questions on this, because it's, I mean, as obviously somebody who's doing an audio podcast, I think audio is a pretty powerful thing. And whether I've just bought into the entire hipster podcast thing over the past couple of years or not, I do feel that there's something when it's when I'm not, there's no visual there. So like I am engaged 100% in the audio of the show that I'm listening to. And it's replaced in large part, most of the TV I watch. So it's, I don't know, it's special for me, I think. So I have some questions here, but, I mean, in terms of when you get ready to go on air, essentially, do you still get nervous, or did you get nervous before, or have you kind of been able to suppress that, or are you just not somebody who gets very nervous kind of before you go live?
At the very start of the first few games, I was very nervous. This is, for me, like always something that I've always wanted to do, and I was so scared that I was going to get something wrong, say something bad, like accidentally curse or something like that, and be like, oh God, I'd be terrified of making a mistake. Now I'm more excited about going live because we start, the coverage starts about 40 minutes before kickoff, so we can, whoever the commentary team is, will do basically some match build-up, some conversation about both sides, describe what's going on the pitch. So I think there's still nerves. I think it would be bad if there wasn't any nerves, because that might show overconfidence and then you might make a mistake more easily. But for now, for me, it's nerves but definitely excitement. I really love doing it and bringing the game to life for these fans, and it's a really good service that Alan March Sport provide. So yeah, it's excitement. It's watching football and talking about football. I can't really say any more to explain that. It's just something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, obviously, as we are here. Has there ever been a moment though that you've been up there, commentating, and it's a unique kind of, I think, viewpoint or vantage point that you get to see. But has there ever been a time where you wish maybe you were down there as a fan for any moment?
Well, for one moment, I wish I could have been a fan for the Charlie Austin goal that was wrongly disallowed against Watford, because I couldn't understand why it hadn't been given. And I think both my co-commentator and myself did so well at that time just to not suppress rage, but, just lots of fans around us were very, very angry that goal hadn't been given. And we described the goal. I mean, it was a good 30 seconds afterwards that the goal hadn't been given. I mean, the celebrations had died down. It was just a case of, I wanted to be a fan and just sort of let off a bit of steam. But obviously you've got to keep your cool as a commentator and just take them through it, what's happened, why it hasn't been disallowed. And that was such a difficult question to answer for the listeners, because we didn't know. We're not in a position where we actually have replays. But that may be a bad one. But in terms of a goal, it would definitely be the first 20 minutes of the game against Manchester United when we took the 2-0 lead, and especially for Cedric's free kick. Mm-hmm. I think I may have gone a little bit crazy had I actually been allowed to as a fan.
Yeah, that was out of nowhere. That I wasn't expecting that. And when he hit it, it was, I mean, pretty much as soon as he hit it, you could tell that was going in. It was beautiful. So
as he was lining up, it was a case of, this is going in. There's no other place that this is going.
Yeah, he's definitely not. He's not lining up to put it into the area. He's not doing that. So good for him. Good for him. I mean, I always say that when I started doing the podcast, it did change the way I watched the team a little bit. It changed the way that I approached my kind of Saturday mornings and my Sunday mornings. And it's probably made me a little bit healthier in terms of, I don't stay up as late if I have an early morning recording, just because it doesn't work. It doesn't sound good. And anyway, so does this job or this service that you provide, does it change the way that you watch the team? Does it change the way you kind of view the game as a whole or anything? Or is it just kind of, you just get to talk about it more than maybe you would if you were just in the stands?
I haven't actually been to a home game as a fan since I've started doing this. Even when the team is away, I'm back to being a usual Southampton fan. Especially, I was incredibly disappointed when Burnley got that penalty. My girlfriend will vouch for that. That I wasn't happy. But in terms of actually being there at the ground, unfortunately the way the season has gone, especially at the start, it hasn't gone too well. So I guess it's made me more numb to Southampton conceding, because I we've got to describe the moment a team scores with as much enthusiasm as when Southampton score, because it's available for both home and away fans. Whilst you maybe put in a tiny bit of bias because Southampton is the team that a lot of the audience will be fans of, you still got to describe the moment that another team scores. And unfortunately, last weekend, I went through the euphoria of Jack Stevens getting a last-minute equaliser. I thought it was a point rescued. And then I still had to describe with the same enthusiasm Cardiff nicking it right at the very end. And although inside I was feeling just disbelief and just complete horror that we'd thrown yet another point away, on the outside, all of my energy that as a fan I may have put into being angry and disappointed, it was actually being channeled into describing the goal for the Cardiff fans with as much glee as if Southampton had scored. And I think that's made me, again, more immune to Southampton losing, because when I exit the stadium after the game, any energy that I would have spent being disappointed has all been used up during the actual commentary.
And when you're done, are you just exhausted? Is it kind of this, because you have to be kind of on edge or on air, or ready kind of with that enthusiasm for 90, or it sounds like over 2 hours, because you guys go on so early. But I mean, when you're done, are you pretty drained? It
is pretty draining, I have to say, especially if you're the commentator that takes you through the final 15 minutes of the game, because a lot of stuff, unfortunately for Saints this season, has happened in that time and not good. But it is quite tiring as someone who's new to this in a somewhat professional, in a professional capacity. It's definitely a new thing. Talking for quite a long time and at different speeds, different levels of enthusiasm. It's definitely once you finish and you're out the stadium, you're thinking, I just want to go get on the train. And quite a lot of the time, I will get home and I think Domino's pizza. I think. Yeah,
I can understand that. I mean, do you have a routine on match day that maybe people just don't have any idea of? Do you do the same kind of preparation every day or every time, or do you do that in the week leading up to it, or what's your match day routine if you have one?
I'll normally start the notes after, or maybe a couple of days after Southampton have had their last game, and if they don't have an away game in that time, I will do the notes, because then I can put down definite statistics of how many goals each player has scored, and possibly, if I do it, because normally press conferences are on a Thursday, I'll maybe finalise it on a Thursday, because then I'll know which players are likely to play, which ones are out injured. And then on the Friday before the game, or the day before the game, there'll be a lot of match previews up that you can just have a look at what other people, like for the BBC, they'll put up a few match stats that maybe you think, I could use that in the pre-match discussion. I didn't know that it's a certain amount of games that Southampton have won against this side. And on the actual match day, we arrive about 3 hours before kickoff. It's a long day. And we're let into the stadium about 3 hours before. We'll go up, we'll set up the equipment and make sure that the equipment's working. Give it a few sound checks, and we'll go and we'll go down to the offices in St Mary's Stadium to collect, because we need a receiver ourselves to check that what we're saying is actually coming through to them. And we'll be able to see down there just how many people are using the service today, or how many people have booked in advance, because whilst you can book in advance, you can get it on the day as well, depending on the amount of receivers that we have free. But yeah, after that we have equipment. We're allowed in the press lounge, so we'll then go and grab some food that they serve before the game. We'll chat about the match. They'll normally have if it's a Saturday game, they'll have the lunchtime kickoff on in the press lounge, so we'll watch that. And sometimes it's a good game, sometimes it's not. But then we'll go out maybe about when the teams are announced. We'll go up and get everything ready, get our notes all prepared. Talk about how many changes each side has made, and then about 2:15, if it's 3 o'clock, or 2:20, we'll get on air. And the key thing we do then is let the listener know what our commentary position is, because as good as you can describe what's happening on the pitch, if you haven't said what your perspective is of the game, then they don't know if you're sat in the Northern Stand, the Chapel Stand, and we're always. This season we've been sat high in the Kingston Stand, just to the right of the TV gantry at the very top.
Okay.
So we're just to the right of the halfway line, right at the very top. and we'll say how we've got the Northern Stand to our left, we've got the chapel to our right, we've got the Itchin on the opposite side of the pitch with the tunnel down below, and we'll say where the away fans are, we'll describe what's on the pitch, and then as we get closer to kick-off, we'll talk about the teams coming out. And then we've got the game. At half-time, we need a break ourselves, and a lot of the listeners want to go and get something from down below, like a coffee or something. So we'll give a quick couple of sentences just to summarise for the first half. Then a couple of minutes before the second half, we'll come back on, talk about big chances in the first half, and then we'll go all the way to full time. And then after full time, we just round things up, and then that's us done. Pack up and try and get to the station before the train leaves.
Yeah, a priority. You don't want to be
exactly. Well, I live in a place where the trains only actually go to the station once an hour. So if I miss that one, it's a long time waiting. And they actually had last weekend replacement bus services, which basically they had engineering works, so they couldn't open the station, and they had buses replace the trains to take you there, and it was a disorganized mess, I think, is a kind way of putting it.
I guess for you, you were currently you're commentating on the matches. You were volunteering your time, but you mentioned kind of this is something you would like to do. Are you actively looking for opportunities, or are you just enjoying this as it comes right now?
I'm enjoying it as it comes right now. I mean, I'm very grateful that Alan March Sport given me this opportunity to not only commentate on football, but to commentate on the team that I love. I'm just seeing where it goes at the moment. Obviously, maybe opportunities may come up in the future. If they don't, then I can at least say that I spent a season commentating on the team I support. But I would love it to go further. It would be fantastic. As I said, this is the goal, as it were.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I was able around Thanksgiving, I was able to talk with Chris Mackey, who is he works for Whistle Sports, and he does a bunch of stuff on YouTube, and he is he's a fascinating guy, and I was more than blessed to be able to talk with him for like over 2 hours and put out an episode with him. But one of the things he kind of stressed is he's, just, if you want to work in football, there are a lot of ways to be able to do it. And whether it's doing what I'm doing, which is sitting here doing a free show that I just really enjoy. And it's I get to talk to people like you, and I get to talk to people like him and just fans, and, Dan and Steve and everybody else in between. And then, so kind of what you're doing, you are getting to work in football. And even if it's not maybe at this moment, the thing that makes you money, you're enjoying it, you're learning, and you're providing a fantastic service. So, I don't know if that fits in the show or not. That may get cut out, but that's something that popped in my mind as you were saying that right there. So,
yeah, then we were actually told because we got a training match, the Southampton against Leicester game at the start of the season we weren't actually commentating to any fan. It was commentating to someone from Alan March Sport who was just listening in on us, giving us tips, giving us feedback on what we were doing. And he said, as we were leaving the stadium, that there are fans who come to the matches who've been season ticket holders for 30, 40, 50 years who never had the access that we as commentators have had. And it's just, it's a privilege to work at Southampton, and I talk to people about what I do, and they say, "Don't you want to get paid?" And I say, "Look, this is amazing. I am happy. I am so happy with the situation right now."
If you would have asked me, say 10 years ago, I would have been that guy. Like, you're not getting paid. What are you doing? And now I think my perspective has changed so much. And I'm not sure why. I can't put my finger as to why it has, but I just think there's so much joy to be had in doing something that you love with the team that you love is even better. And I don't know, that's just something I think I feel you. I relate to that, I guess, a lot. So, yeah, I mean, is there anything else maybe about Alan March Sport that, or your commentary kind of stuff that you want to make sure we talk about here?
First of all, need to make it clear. It's not just me providing the service. We have a team of 4 commentators on the Southampton audio description service. It's myself, we've got Callum, we've got Nick, and we've got Andy. And they're all fantastic. They're a really nice group of people. They're all really, really talented. It's a joy working with them, and we all have chemistry with each other of when we're doing our pre-match shows, pre-match build-up. So I just want to make the listeners aware that I'm not this is not a one-man team by any way. Sure. We're all in it together. I'd definitely say, am I the best commentator out of all of them? I certainly wouldn't say that. I think we've got some very talented guys in there.
Yeah. All right. I mean, now not all 4 of you are on air at the same time, I'm guessing.
No, it's just 2 for a match day. It's just a team of 2. There were talks about at the start maybe it's a team of 3, but it's gone for a team of 2 now, and that just gives not only someone that you can just bounce off ideas with during the match, but also to give you a rest. Because again, I'm very experienced in this. This is my first gig as a commentator, as it were, and yeah, maybe you don't have the stamina. You've got to build up the stamina as I go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know we don't have a match obviously this weekend, and the team has been away in Tenerife, but I guess just from your perspective with some of the stuff, I mean, how do you feel about how the team is looking right now? I know that when Ralph came in, we were at a weird spot. I think Ralph was an appointment that everybody was excited about, and I don't think very many people saw it coming. And you know, he's had us playing pretty well. We've had a couple of dud matches, but I think that happens. And we find ourselves right in the relegation zone at the moment. And over a 2-week break is never the best time to be sitting there. I think just us sitting one position higher would have been a little bit. I think everybody feels a little bit better. And last week's episode was definitely feeling the effects of that after the conceding late to Burnley. But I mean, how do you, as a fan, I guess, look at what we're doing on the pitch, and how are you feeling right now, given what Ralph's been able to do in the short time that he's been with the club?
Well, the past 3 games have been somewhat disappointing in terms of the number of points that we've managed to get. I mean, two points from those 3 games. I think a lot of people would have looked at that total and, you know, think, well, I wonder if Mark Hughes would have done better. No, I'm not going to go there, because I think even if he had got more points out of those games, I think we'd be well and truly down if he was still here. I think I'm happy. I'm really happy that we've got Ralph. I think he's done terrifically well so far. We've certainly seen an improvement in the way that the team plays, in individual performances such with Ward-Prowse and certainly Nathan Redmond. Yeah, the last 3 games haven't gone well, but I'm confident that he will pull us out of this mess.
Yeah, it was difficult to put that into perspective last weekend, in the immediate aftermath of the match. But I do think there are a lot of positive signs for the team, and you know, maybe the investment needed to be there. We looked a little short when with Ings out. We don't quite look like we have it. But I think that against Arsenal and United, I think maybe, I mean, United are playing pretty well right now, but I think against Arsenal and United, maybe we have a better shot of getting something from those matches than a team who's going to sit back and just defend like Cardiff did. And then I'm not sure that Fulham are defensively sound enough to be able to sit deep. So maybe they'll just attack and try to outdo us. Maybe I think that game potentially has the potential, I should say, to be a high scoring affair if things go well or badly, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I think Fulham is a must-win game. I don't think there's any other result that we can look on as a positive one. I think not that we're relegated if we don't win it, because obviously there's still 10, 11 games left to get points. But if we want to have a real shot of staying up, then Fulham is definitely the one that we need to win. And it doesn't matter if we don't win it well. If we win 1-0 and it comes off Vestergaard's backside and goes into the net in the 95th minute, that will be fine. It's just the 3 points that we're after at the moment from that one. But like you said earlier with Arsenal and Manchester United, I'm actually not confident enough that I think we'll go there and we'll get the result straight from kickoff. But I completely understand that Hasenhüttl's style is definitely more suited to teams that don't sit back and have 11 men behind the ball all the time like Cardiff did, because against Cardiff it was so clear that we struggled to break them down, whereas his style is very much win the ball high up the pitch. And if you do that again, I mean, Arsenal, we saw on Thursday, they lost quite an embarrassing Europa League game to a team that isn't even on the FIFA game. And, we actually played them. The last time we played Arsenal, they just come off a Europa League game and we beat them. So I'm actually more confident of getting a result against them than I would have been before Hasenhüttl came.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple of questions from listeners, from Instagram and from Twitter and from the Patreon group chat on Discord, which is one of the things that patrons get if they buy at any level is access to this kind of chat, which is exciting sometimes. Sometimes it is not. I think that's with any group chat. But anyway, so one of the things that the patrons do is they get priority for having their questions answered on the show. And Justin Woodward is the newest patron. And so he says, question for the podcast. He says, what do you think Ralph Hasenhüttl's main focus has been with the team during the trip to Tenerife and in the coming weeks? So I guess just, having come off that loss to Cardiff in the manner that it happened, there hasn't been a ton in the media about what they were doing. I mean, it looked like it was nice. It looked like they were working really hard as well. Definitely was not a beachside kind of hanging out and enjoying the drinks. It was definitely looked like they were working. But I mean, what do you think the focus has been just with the team? And maybe if it was you there, what would you kind of think they would be focusing on, or what would you focus on?
Well, I certainly hope he's put the players through a few shooting drills just so they can actually get the ball on target. That would be fantastic. But no, in all seriousness, he's probably, if anything, mentally, he's given. I hope he's been instilling some belief into the players. They might be. I'd expect them to be certainly very demoralised after such a poor return from those 3 fixtures that we've just had, and he'll want to let them know that they can do it. They know that they can do it. So, but on the pitch, just a way of hopefully breaking these teams that are going to come and sit back, because the first few games, people didn't really know how Hasenhüttl would play, or they'd have a little idea, but they would get it wrong, especially when Arsenal came to town. But now teams will look at the performance of Cardiff and think, well, if we do that, then Southampton are going to really, really struggle. And teams who are much better than Cardiff, who can do that, are going to find it very easy to sit back and score a couple of chances that they will have. So I hope that he will be one. If I was the manager, a training drill that I would have would be to really pack the penalty area or the area around the penalty area and just tell, almost like an attack against defence scenario, it's like break that down, find a way to get the ball through those kind of situations, and you will score and get the points in these important games. I
think that's just it. It's we definitely lack that ability to pick the lock, and I think maybe we lack that player in midfield to do it. But we'll have to see, and I hope that. I mean, I am not a coach. I think that Hasenhüttl will have been able to look at that and I think he probably has a way to do that, or at least some ideas to try, more so than I think you or I would potentially come up with. Because on FIFA, I am definitely the counter-attacking team with just I want the fastest players in the world on either flank, and I just got to put balls in the middle. But people figure that out on FIFA too, and then I lose. So anyway, Dan, who's at Holy Hoiberg, asks, from a commentary standpoint, what's your favorite name to pronounce and your favorite commentary moment?
Name to pronounce was actually the first game that we did live was against Brighton. And they have a player called Alireza Jahanbakhsh, which on paper it looks like a complete mouthful and like someone's got alphabetic spaghetti and just put all the names together, all the letters together to see what they can come up with. And Andy, who I was doing the commentary with, we were so thankful that he was on the bench, because we were thinking if we've got to get, he's a big player for them. At the time he's one of their record signings. If they start him, he's going to get the ball a lot, and we're going to have to say his name a lot. And thankfully he was on the bench. And then in the second half, Brighton had the audacity to bring him on. And we both laughed as we saw the number come up, and we thought, oh God, who has the fun of trying to pronounce this guy's name? So yeah, it would definitely be him. In terms of best commentary moment, it's quite limited considering this has only been going since September.
Well, yeah, and what we've seen, it hasn't been great.
I would say, first of all, again, it was in the Brighton game. I was lucky enough to get to commentate on the Højbjerg goal from about 30 yards out, and that was the first goal I'd actually commentate in this career of actually commentating on. So that was fantastic. I was surprised to think as many fans were in the ground that when he took a shot from range that it had gone in. So I'd definitely say that one. Yeah,
I don't think any of us were expecting that. And I don't know, he's had some shocking attempts from we'll just go with Steph Curry range for all the American listeners, or even some of the guys who just like basketball. That was way out there. But yeah, I mean, it's the season, I don't want to say has been a disappointment, because it sounds like maybe just we're being negative, but in truth, and looking at it all, looking where we're standing, the season isn't where we want to be. Obviously, that Ralph has done a lot to improve the team, and I think the team is maybe enjoyable to watch now, more so than it was under Hughes, Pellegrino, and even people would argue under Puel. And I think that's probably correct. It's exciting to see. It's probably more for you to do as a commentator, but also you're probably not sitting there kind of bored and just hoping for something to happen,
Yeah, under Hasenhüttl, the play has become far more exciting, and I've seen a lot of, especially I dabble on some of the Southampton forums and just look at different views that people have, and whilst people are worried about the results, about especially the performances in the recent games, my own view, and I don't want to be like forced optimism, but I think a lot of people need to remember that this is not Hasenhüttl's team. This is a side that he has to deal with until the summer. And whilst people may be frustrated that we didn't sign anyone in January, I suppose we've seen with people like Carrillo, you don't want to sign someone for the sake of signing someone. But in the summer, if we can, the main goal of this season is staying up. I mean, we don't need to worry about whether we want to finish 13th or 14th. All we want to do is just make sure that we're not in the bottom three. Mm-hmm. And I'll be fine with that, because I think there's going to be a lot to be excited about over the summer, because Ralph will have the opportunity not only to have a pre-season with the team, but to build and sign his own players that he think will suit his style. And I think maybe not next season we'll see the true fruits of his labour, but definitely the season towards the end of next season we'll definitely see the real Southampton side that he wants to make. And I think there's a lot to be excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point that this isn't his team. It's just the team he has at the moment. And I think there's some players who are definitely going to stay that fit the style, and he's made people miles better. But I definitely think there's some places where he's going to look and say, I need a player who can do this here. And, we saw kind of a clean out over the January transfer window in terms of loans, but I imagine some of those things will be made permanent if he has his way. So we will see. And our record in the transfer window hasn't been great as of late. We've made record signings and near record signings, and it just all kind of hasn't worked out. So hopefully all of that gets better. And if it only improves as much as the on-field kind of aesthetics have improved, I think we'll be just fine,
Absolutely. And if he can just bring players in that he knows will suit his style, then again, if he can get us playing like he had Leipzig playing in the German league, then there's a lot to be excited about.
All right. Well, Tom, this has been a pleasure, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I feel like I've gotten a lot of insight into what you provide in terms of an audio service with Alan March Sport, and I think it's good for the fans to know that this is available at other grounds. And I'll try to find the phone number for booking the service and put it in the show notes in case anybody wasn't aware. Hopefully not, but hopefully everybody knows already. But if not, we'll put it in there. And if people want to book and get a device and have the description there, then we'll have that. So I think that'll be good. But is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap this up?
Just to let people know, the other teams that Alan March Sport provide audio description commentary for include Crawley, Mansfield, Nottingham Forest, and Leicester, because those are they're based in the Midlands, so a lot of around the Nottingham area, around the Leicester areas where this all got started. So whether Southampton stay up, go down, we will still have the service. To my current knowledge, the service will roll on to next season.
Okay. And
the club are actively searching for more receivers. We currently have only 10, but the popularity means that we've sold, not sold out. That's the wrong word, but we've used up all of the receivers on several match days. So it's only becoming more popular. And I'd say to anyone who's listening to this and has listened to the service, any feedback whatsoever, where it's good, bad, points that you like, points that you think we can improve on, always happy to hear them.
And hopefully the club then will be able to get a few more receivers for those who wish to use the service. And feedback is always good. And Tom, this has been great again, and I really appreciate your time, and I've kept you up quite late. So I appreciate you being patient with me as I got ready, and my son finished up his video game as he was mid boss bad guy thing, and the TV is literally a couple of inches above the microphone, and there was just no way this was going to happen if we were trying to compete with the non-save point in the game. That's just not going to happen.
Absolutely, and I completely understand the situation of the son. If you're mid boss fight and Dad's telling you to turn it off, you're not going to be happy, especially if you're so close to winning.
As a kid, I promised myself I wouldn't be that parent, and I almost turned into that parent.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been a joy. Thank you very much.
No problem, man. We will talk to you next time. And that does it for this episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. A special thanks this week goes out to Tom Murray, who's on Twitter at T14Murray. He's a volunteer commentator for Alan March Sport, and it was fascinating to get kind of some insight into how that all got started and the service they provide. I think it's a fantastic service. And once again, if you or anybody you know can use that service, that would make their match day experience better. The link is in the show notes to go ahead and contact the club so you can get a hold of it. You can contact this show on social media at SFCDELL_IVERY on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/SFCDelivery. There's no underscore in the Facebook address. And of course, the big new thing, the website, SouthamptonDelivery.com. That has all the links to all the social media, to all the shows, to all the different ways you can get in contact with us. And it would really mean a lot if you went and checked it out. The show would not be possible without the support of the patrons at patreon.com/SFCDelivery. Their contributions help keep the show advertisement free. They help make sure we can pay for the hosting and for the website. And for the month of February, we have donated the proceeds from Patreon to help Daryl Grove, who is one of the another host of a podcast here in the States, to help his battle with cancer. So that's what we did with the money this month. But normally it goes for just paying for the stuff that we need for the show, for Skype credit and everything else. So if you enjoy the show and if you want access to maybe a private chat, which is something they get, or even extra podcast episodes, you can do that by visiting the Patreon site. But that's it for that. The show would also not be possible without Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Matt does the logo for the show, and he now is an official employee of the club. So congratulations to Matt. But check out the We Are Southampton page on Instagram for all your matchday edits, polls, competitions, and more. In addition to that, the Southampton page on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, huge supporters of the show. Jay has been behind me since day one. It's been fantastic to have his support and to have the rest of the support of all the guys working there. So check those places out. The music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the intro credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. That does it for this week, but we will be back on Friday with the newsletter and back next week with another episode after the Arsenal match. And we'll look ahead to Fulham and Manchester United as we have a number of big games coming up. So that does it for now. Until next time, remember that together we march on.